This model was based on the Ausin Healey 100 and is a late 50s model, and it's model number 109, and it's sort of got a Le Mans theme to it. So let's get to it.
The mighty Ausin Healey 100, fairly good condition this one, and the trick when you get these things off of eBay really is to try and find one with as many parts on it as possible, because they all add up, the cost of everything. This is missing the windscreen, so that will be replaced. The steering wheel looks bent. I think they tried to cover that up when they were selling it, but we'll should be able to straighten that out. And of course some water slide transfers. This one is number 23. Replace the bonnet and the sides, and it looks like it's sort of painted in a sort of an off-white, so I'm going to check the colour on that, and that should look quite good when it's done. So we've got two rivets on the Healey. We're going to put a bit of cutting fluid on each one, and these should, remember to take off the other one. Oh, straight through and straight off. Just to clear off a little bit of flash on that one, and that will lift off, and we'll be ready to do the next step. So we've got a little surprise inside the Healey. These are the two rivets, rivet posts, but where the little driver sits, looks like they just melted the driver over, so just going to run the drill on that to free him up so that we can give it a proper paint. We'll have to glue him back in. So that's actually a surprise. It's actually a metal rivet that goes right up his seat. So they must have a. Oh, this is metal. That's why. So that's modern day thinking that it was plastic, and of course he's not. He's metal. So he's free, and we'll get on with the next bit. I'm going to put a bit of cutting fluid on the drill bit and onto the posts, just to help with the cut and prolong the drill. And this is going to be a 1.8mm hole to take a self tapper. Base plate's off the Healey, quite light, and we're just going to take the tyres off of this. They're all a bit dried and cracked, and we'll replace those of course. Then the other thing, we've got the driver out and the steering wheel, not quite sure what's with that. It's got a kink in it, and I'm not sure if that's intentional, but you can't seem to place it in straight, so I'm gonna take a small pair of pliers and just straighten that pin, and that'll make it easier hopefully when we're trying to get it back together again to get the right angle on the dash. So just a little bit of straightening, and then when that goes in through the dash we can bend it on the back to keep it in. So let's straighten that a bit. The driver doesn't look too bad. We've actually got a replacement driver So I'm going to use the new one, I think, because he's nice and shiny. Got those, and then of course the transfers that we've got to go on the side to replace the numbers. And then the other thing that I've got is a replacement windscreen, which is just a small piece of acrylic. And if I just open that up, and let's see, that should sit in there like that. And it seems to be that the base plate just pushes down on the bottom of it. Oops. Oh, there it goes, and it held in place. So that's going to look really neat. Did a sort of colour test, and I've come up with an ivory white, which is quite close enough for what we're going to do with this one today. And so the next thing is paint stripping. So, and the first off, we're going to put some rubber gloves on. Might use a smaller container for this one. Yeah, so we can get it in this one. I'm going to take an old toothbrush and just rub it in. I'm going to cut the wheels off in a minute and use some replacement axles. And this one seems to have, again, one of the front wheels, the rims the wrong way round, so they probably just had a 50-50 chance of getting it right, I would imagine. So we're going to leave that for a couple of hours and then wire brush it up and see what we can do next. Okay, so here's the Healey, suitably covered in paint stripper. Oops. So we're going to try and get as much off of this as we can and see how much of the paint's come off. So just going to put that back into some more stripper and let that cook a little bit more. And the other one is trying to fish out the chassis. So the chassis fared better. That's coming off, and that will come off with a wire brush, what's left on there, just to clean it up. That's it. Here with we've got the Healey chassis, a bit rusty, so we need to take that off. But of course, the first thing that's going to come off is the wheels, and we're going to take this thinner. Let's have a look. Oh, this is the thinner part, which should come off with the use of a grinder. Needs a little bit more on that one. That's one wheel and axle off, and now we're going on to the next one, and we're going to choose the thinner end, on there. That's the last one off, and what we're also going to do is give it a little coat in rust remover, just so that it keeps it nice and clean for when we put the primer on. And we just basically rub that all on like that with just an old brush, and then just let it sit for about 5 minutes, 10 minutes maybe. So I'm going to spray the base plate with some standard car primer. And we're going to spray the body shell here in some surface primer.
The Healey's going to get a matte black coated base plate, so we're going to paint that now. Just pop a cover on this to stop the dust and dirt getting onto it, and we'll come back and finish that off. Painting the Healey with some ivory white. Drop my cover over the top of it and should have a good finish on that. Let's get started on the painting, and we're going to use some red X7 and basically paint the interior of this Healey. So, using a very fine brush, managed to complete the interior, and we're going to start looking at putting on the transfers next. What I'm going to use to put these water slides on is some of this Humbrol decal fix, and I've put a little bit in this tray, cut round one of these water slide transfers, and we're just going to drop that into the decal fix and put a little bit on top, and then leave it for about 2 minutes to soak, so it gets nice and wet. And put a little bit more on top just to soak it through, and then just let that soak for 2 minutes. Next thing to do is to put some of this decal fix onto where we're going to put the transfer as well. So this one's going to go onto the bonnet. I'll put some of it on there, and then this is the sort of tricky bit of basically taking the transfer with a pair of tweezers like so, and this should slide off the backing sheet. So you let it go like that. What will happen is that will start to slide off, and at some point we capture the backing. There it goes, with the tweezers, and pull the backing sheet off. So slide that into place like that, and then you've got quite a bit of time actually to sort of move it around with the brush. I'm going to get that central. Just soak up the excess fluid, and you've got to try and do it without touching the decal, because if you do that, the transfer will move and you sort of kind of like back to square one. It stays fluid for quite a while actually, so you've got a chance or two to move things around, and this is just to get rid of some of the excess. Time for the Healey to get a coat of lacquer, and we're going to do the wheels as well. So
finally we're into the final straight with the Heeley, and what we're going to do, I've put one of the axles on already, but what we're using in this case are these easy fit axles, and they have a pin that goes into the end of the axle like so, which makes it a lot easier than trying to pin over the ends of a solid axle. So the first thing I'm going to do is put a tiny bit of super glue into the end of this axle. So, and then put one of these pins into that. Now, put the wheel on to that through the chassis. The wheel on the other side. Another tiny drop of super glue. And another pin in there. Next thing to put in is the steering wheel, and I've slightly straightened out the column on that to get it in. It goes in like that, and then we're just going to bend over the back of the steering column. Keep that in place. Pop the windscreen in. Like so. It looks like the windscreen actually clicks in to those convenient mounts. That's handy. And the chassis goes on like that. Now, we drilled these 1.8mm holes earlier, and I've got these 2mm Allen button heads, and without having to tap them, they will just screw in. So basically screw them in, a couple of turns, back a little bit, and that's really kind of they're doing a job of tapping themselves in. Now is the time for some new tyres. looking pretty good. And of course the driver. And we're going to glue him in as well in a second. And there we have the Healey. Last finishing touch to the Healey is to put some silver onto the headlamps. And also the grille was painted as well, so we'll fill that in, and along with the bumper, of course. I'm doing this at the moment for the benefit of the camera, but I will go in with a smaller brush and an eyeglass just to finish off the edges.
I hope you like this restoration, and of course the ubiquitous statement, if you'd like to see more, please subscribe. Thank you very much.